Now I would like to invite our colleague, Arndt. He's one of our Foresight champions in ADB. Hear more from Arndt about why the transport sector became the first in line to really deep dive into this Foresight approach in ADB, and how does he see this playbook and train cards being used by other stakeholders. Arndt, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Bama, and greetings to you all. I wish I could be there in Delhi right now. Basically, the transport sector is one of those large portfolios in ADB with a lot of tradition, a lot of expertise. And frankly, ADB has built lots of infrastructure around Asia. So why take this sector that's so established, and you can already imagine why that is, for foresight exercises? Because we need to think about how this could look like in the future. We can't forever build roads and railroads. We have to think about new types of transport that are going to be used by people in the future. What do future generations need? And there are some very critical aspects of the transport infrastructure that I've pointed out here, which make it very important to apply foresight and futurist thinking. Transport projects have very long life cycles. It takes years to go from initial planning to design and to construction. And we need to be ever more efficient in using financial resources that are becoming more and more scarce. Transport infrastructure, but also generally infrastructure, is impacted by future social, technological, economic, environmental, and political contexts, not just the ones of now, but the ones of the future. And these infrastructures are exposed to a wide range of risks. I don't need to tell this audience that includes disasters. We need to design for tomorrow's reality, not really for today's, because the infrastructure that we now design is going to be used for generations. So with this in mind, we started working on the transport sector with various people in the bank, but also other external experts and counterparts of ADB. And we produced these 3 products that you can find on our website now after a long gestation period. And maybe somebody can post the link into the platform that people are using. There's a report, there's a playbook, and there's trend cards. My task now is to just showcase this product as an example of how you can apply foresight in your respective context. Apart from this report, I want to go to what Shakil has mentioned: narratives, stories. A report on its own doesn't do all that much to people. It doesn't move you much. But we decided that we wanted to invite some voices of futurists, young people in various parts of Asia, to look at this report and think about what this means for them and how they can imagine a future where the things that we talk about in the report become a reality. We produced various narratives of what we call personas, people in the future who are telling us about their life in the future and how they live that reality, that future reality. And then we decided to also interview these futurists and ask them, well, how did you do that? How did you get from the report to this narrative? All very interesting material that will soon be featured in another webinar, which we would invite everyone to join, and that's coming up in a couple of weeks. But the report is already online for you to look at, and this is how it looks like inside. We have various trends that we identified. We looked at the implications of these trends on the transport sector, and there it's a lot of things that lie outside the expertise of usual transport planners. What futures do we want? And how can we get there? What are the principles that we need to apply? Out of the principles would then arise some strategies. And this was done for all of Asia and the Pacific. So I kept saying during the entire process that we need to actually prepare ourselves to contextualize this work. This doesn't mean much at a regional level, and you need to, when you are designing a project or when you're working on a national strategy, you need to think about your context and how this plays a role. And for that purpose, we have a playbook. The playbook goes along the report and actually gives you 4 pathways of how to work through this material using these worksheets in workshops. So you could take the report, you can take our trend cards, which we have 10 of, and you can very easily, with this playbook, play around with this material and make it your own, contextualize it to your context. These are the 4 user journeys. The first one is about mapping trends, a very typical activity in Foresight and Futures work. What are the current things that we see emerging, the signals out there, and how do we make sense of them? Also questioning your own uncertainties, where you are saying, oh, well, actually, I don't know about this at all. I'm uncertain about the future. And recognizing those is hugely important in Foresight work. Then you could look at, with the playbook, a pathway of enhancing the future readiness of your projects, testing them against certain futures. You could develop a strategy using this material, or you could create your own vision statements that look at the desirable futures that you see coming, or maybe also the ones that you think are not desirable and that one needs to navigate against. So these are examples of how to use the playbook. And that's just a showcase of this work, which was quite a process to come through, but a very exciting one that I'm very passionate about. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Arndt. And as a next plan, are you planning any follow-up projects? And do you think other sectors will follow what you have done?
Yes, I think Susan would tell you that we have overwhelming demand.
Yeah.
It's actually very few people in ADB so far, but a growing number of people that can engage with this methodology. It's not rocket science to learn, but one needs a little bit of practice. And so this is growing. And on the demand side, we have many different teams that are saying this could be useful for our planning, for our project design. And in fact, this transport sector work is now leading to concrete follow-up at country level, where we now take these tools and contextualize, just like what I presented should be done, a pathway forward to digest this material, which otherwise would just go onto a shelf or lie as a nice publication of ADB, on a tabletop. That's not the point. It's really about shifting our thinking and our action now, so that we can be better at anticipating the future and produce future-ready projects and partnerships with our counterparts in country.
Thank you, Arndt.